Thanks for joining, everybody. I'm so happy to have Samantha Evans with us now. Know her from LinkedIn. And I asked her, can you please do a short session to tell people why it's so important to get more training in accessibility and maybe even a certification? And she was like, yes. So let me just read her bio and then I'll let her set sail. Samantha Sam Evans, CAE MBA, is the certification manager at the International Association of Accessibility Professionals, IAAP, a division of G3ICT, where she works with accessibility subject matter experts and professionals around the world to maintain international standards. Oh, trying to let people in the room. Sorry. Juggling, where she works with professionals around the world to maintain, build, and deliver accessibility certification programs. Working within the international standards for certification and credentialing, Sam facilitates the work of IAAP and the accessibility community to establish benchmarks of knowledge, skills, and concepts for the accessibility professional. Sam is also an active accessibility and inclusion advocate. Sam holds an MBA in marketing and international business from Kennesaw State University and has more than 20 years of experience in association management. So thanks again to Sam for being here, and I will turn myself off and say go, go, go.
Thanks so much for inviting me to join today. I'm super excited and I'm a bit of a fangirl as well. I have Debbie's book is one of my go-to titles that I often refer people to for reading. So I'm super excited to be able to support the work that Debbie's doing here. I'm going to share my screen, but just a little bit of insight for you. I have been in the nonprofit and association management world for a lot of years and hold credentials and have been working in that. And so a lot of background in industries and professions, helping to establish how do we determine what our field needs to know and what do people need to know about the work we do. And so education and training and certifications are all great ways to contribute to that. So let me share my screen and then we'll get started here. Oops, there we go. There's my share my screen. And I'm going to choose my PowerPoint slides. And I believe I'm now sharing my screen with you. And our slide cover says, how can we establish our profession and ourselves, education and certifications in the accessibility profession? And I'm going to talk a little bit about how this works both for CX and UX and accessibility, because they're all three professions or professional tracks that a lot of people may consider new. And if you were to say them in a large group of people, people might not know exactly what that means. So it's kind of an earmark of a young organization or profession. So thanks for joining me today. I'm going to start just a little bit about IAAP. Debbie gave us a great little intro. IAAP was founded in 2014 by 31 organizations and private sector accessibility consulting, nonprofits, education, and disability service groups. We merged with G3ICT, which is the Global Initiative for Inclusive Information and Communication Technologies. That's an advocacy initiative launched in December of 2006 in cooperation with the Secretariat for the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities at UNDESA. So we became one of G3ICT's divisions. So for what our organization does, the mission of IAAP is to define, promote, improve, and diversify the accessibility profession globally. Oops, I'm missing a space, sorry. Through certification, education, and networking in order to enable the creation of accessible products, content, services, and environments. So that's our purpose. And my work, obviously, is in the certification side of things, but my love is for lifelong learners and education and training and helping people acquire the knowledge and skills they need to make the world a more accessible and inclusive place. So IAAP is a bit different from some other professional organizations. We're the only one that offers professional certifications and 2 technical credentials in accessibility. Our work with G3ICT makes us part of a much larger organization with research and programs and services that are really tied to an international scope, a global presentation for digital products, services, and environments. And G3ICT, if you're not familiar with the organization, produces the Digital Accessibility Rights Evaluation, or the DARE Index, and scores accessibility progress for people with disabilities in countries according to the ICT dispositions from the CRPD for the United Nations. So professional education. So I know I see lots of really great programs. I know that Debbie and her team offers really great CX and UX work. So education is something that most all of us pursue, whether we're starting in our professions or whether we're midway or, we've been in for a number of years and want to update our knowledge base. But professional education is how you grow your knowledge and your skill sets. So education and training, I'm just going to do some differentiation between education training courses and certifications and how they both are great complements to your work as a professional. And if you have questions along the way, feel free to pop them into chat. I'll keep an eye on that as we go. So all education, from my perspective, is beneficial. So I think that as lifelong learners, as most of us are, and if you're inquisitive and curious, you have a great opportunity and so many resources available now to take on education, whether that's a formal education that's offered from accredited institutions. Those might be degree programs or certificate programs in a specialty area, or training and courses that can be provided by corporations and nonprofits and individuals. And those can be done online or in person or live or asynchronous. They don't have to be, live real time. And I think a lot of this is, we're going to encounter this. I'm doing a lot of training and education myself in new areas. And the term you may hear now is called upskilling, and how that can help you meet the needs of new technologies and practices. Are any of you that are here with us today actively participating in training or courses to advance what you're working on in your work? Are you leading or attending courses? I'll just look in chat and see if we have anybody popping in here. So I don't see anything yet, but I'm sure people are. So education and training are amazing opportunities. They're great ways to advance your knowledge. So what Shailene says that they're attending a course on accessibility. So what education and training courses are, they are structured and have a disciplined format. So there's a structure, there's learning objectives. Usually if it's multi-modes, you'll have different learning objectives. You might have an engagement in this educational process, whether that's you live, whether you're seated in person, remote, online, or on demand. All of these kinds of educational programs and training courses include a completion of a course. So you might list this on your education, on your resume, or on a profile to list your investment and your commitment to your time to advancing your learning. It's a great way to document how you are investing in your knowledge and advancing your skill sets. Training courses and education programs demonstrate your knowledge of course content. It's related to that program. So it's related to what was presented in that time frame. It has a defined start. The start of the course was, course launches on day X, or when you pressed play for your on-demand programs, and it has a defined end. So it comes to a close. So there's no ongoing engagement beyond your completion of a course. And that's sort of where you differentiate what educational courses and training programs are from what we'll talk about for education as far as certification programs and what that means in our professions. I see lots of really great programs about UX being offered from some of the best known names that we know in industry. We have lots of great accessibility organizations that offer training and courses, which is awesome. So many of them are available during the month of May for Global Accessibility Awareness Day, which was last week on Thursday, but is being celebrated all through the month of May. And those kinds of programs are amazing. And it's a great way to gather different varying inputs and thoughts. And in the digital world with on-demand, an opportunity to not have to go somewhere to get training and education. So, but there's a bit of a difference between what educational programs and training courses are. So, but let's go back and let's talk about the benefits. Let's kind of cap that off so we can move on to the next topic. So the benefits of additional for educational training programs is that they really build your capacity and the recognition of the effort and the work that you've done in a specific area. Usually educational training programs provide that instruction and training. They help you acquire specific knowledge because they have a learning objective, whether that's bite-sized in a webinar or a longer course. But those assessments are directly linked and included to the learning event. It's usually narrow in scope. You're not going to find usually now an a degree program may be broad because it's a full degree program, but most educational courses and training programs are narrow in scope, and they likely will offer a certificate of completion or participation. But that's a little different than a certification. And while you may think the words are very similar, they are, but there's some differences, and we'll talk about that in just a moment here. Do anybody in the group have questions about training courses and education, or what you're finding in the educational world with UX and accessibility? I'm seeing interesting discussions happening about, and we'll talk about this in just a minute, about UX and the UX profession and UX skills. I'm seeing a lot of discussion in the job and recruiting world where, unfortunately, people are saying UX and UI are the same thing, which for those of us who work in actual user experience, we know that's not the same. They may work together, but but I'm seeing some really great discussions happen with the UX profession about how do we establish what are the required skills and knowledge to establish and differentiate somebody as someone who actually has this experience and knowledge, and how do we assess that so that the UX profession can distinguish itself from, not that it's a bad thing that there are a lot of people that have experience and interest in UX, but if you want to talk about what distinguishes a UX professional or an accessibility professional, it is a unique set of skills, knowledge, and concepts. So we're going to talk about one way that happens in the professional world. So we're going to move over to talking about professional certifications. So one of the biggest parts of programs as you develop them, no matter what field you're in, professional certifications set benchmarks of knowledge and skills. So in larger areas, you'd know that SHRM is the Society for Human Resource Management. They have certifications for people that are human resource managers. Accounting has certified professionals or chartered accountants. So you know that in accounting, there are professional certifications. Project management, PMP from PMI, the project management professional, are certifications from organizations that are established and accredited bodies, and in professions that have been around for long enough to where the average person on the street knows what that means. So for our younger organizations and younger professions, as we're establishing ourselves, certifications are one of the ways that we can help establish those benchmarks of knowledge and skills. So I see a comment in chat that somebody's working on an accessibility course from IDF, the Interaction Design Foundation. And it's a great program, and I've heard really good things about the programs. And so it's a great educational resource, and I find many people take it and really enjoy the content. It's a great way to build knowledge and introduce those concepts so that you can implement them into the work that you're doing. So let's talk for a moment about what professional certification programs are and how they differ a little bit. So you know what educational institutions are, you know what training programs and course delivery programs are. Certification programs actually have to follow a pretty stringent process to develop a program. They're governed by a commission or an accrediting body, but it has to start with the concept of a public survey. We believe these are the core components that somebody in this job or this skill set knows how to do. That public survey goes out. It has to get a qualified number to be valid data of responses back, where the public feeds back, yes, we agree, yes, this is important. And that weighted contribution back from the public helps establish the weighted percentage or how important each element is in kind of a content outline. That survey is the basis of the content outline, which then moves forward into documenting in a body of knowledge the concepts, terms, and pieces of information to be evaluated and established and verified through reliable open sources, not necessarily behind a gateway or behind a paywall. And then a process of working with psychometric professionals to build and establish certification assessments or exams, and then to test and evaluate those programs and services to see, did the exam perform the way we think it should with people that are well qualified, that are beyond a minimally qualified candidate, and then to do ongoing assessments of the exams and how they perform. So it's a really well-structured certification process that meets standards, international standards are in place, and there's an entire profession for people like me in the credentialing and certification profession. So it's a lot of work. It's not that somebody set up a test and wrote 50 questions and put it online, and that's a test, and that's not a certification program. But so the assessment or portfolio review, so you may find some advanced professional certifications and licensure programs that require a portfolio review, proof of work and experience, and an interview with a panel. Many certification programs do offer experience or suggest experience to be successful. Intermediate technical programs may require proof of experience, but they also may suggest that at a stopping point in assessments, we're not sure that you have enough experience to have success at this point in time. Perhaps you might want to come back at a later time. But certification programs are not tied to a training program or an educational outcome. It's not about a class. It's not about a degree. They are actually indicating levels of competencies that are measured against these standards or objectives that public survey helped establish. The organization that accredits and runs certification programs issues credentials, the letters you use after your name. So when you earn a certification, there are postnomials, those letters after your name. So for me, I indicate my higher education with my MBA, my Master's of Business Administration, and my certified association executive that indicates my commitment to the association management profession. So certification programs don't have a stopping point. You complete your exam, you earn your credential, but there's ongoing training and development required, and they can be renewed. So they're valid for a certain number of years and can be renewed, but you have to meet some requirements in order to renew them. So it is an ongoing engagement and a commitment to that program, service, or profession. So what are the benefits of professional certification programs? Ideally, certification programs recognize professionals who meet these established knowledge, skills, or competencies that are expected out of a professional. So the certification programs assess knowledge, skills, or competencies that have already been acquired by the individual, whether that's through study, experience, or advocacy, or just their personal passions. So, and each program is different, but they validate competency through an assessment of some sort. They're broad in scope, usually a sample of a large body of knowledge. So it is not, tell me what I need to learn to do well on this test. It is a matter of, I've studied this information, I'm familiar enough with this information to have the experience to be able to answer a random sampling of questions across all of these topics. They award designations to recognize the achievement, and they kind of establish benchmarks for employers of what can be expected from those in a profession. And as professions grow and are recognized, you'll start to see in job posts, companies and organizations will start to request in job postings preferred qualifications or required qualifications. And as professions mature, you'll start to see these more frequently as industry and look at large are seeking qualified individuals to meet the needs of their roles. But we're also finding this to occur in requests for qualifications and for companies for bids, for projects, and for contracts, because customers want to know that the companies have employees that are qualified to do the work so that they know they meet regulations, requirements, or to do quality work. So there's a comment in chat that says certifications could be better for staying up to date and informed. And you're right, certifications that require that ongoing professional development do require you to participate actively in your ongoing education and training to stay on top of what's happening, be aware of changes in your industry, profession, laws, regulations, new trends, new products and services. And so it is an encouragement to be active and a commitment to that profession or that set of skills. So here's kind of a way that we talk about at IWAP about how we're building an accessible future with our certification programs. And on this slide, there's a table. It's 2 columns wide and 6 rows deep. On the left is the title of each thing that would act as a header. Our certifications and our professionals that earn our credentials, and you could exchange accessibility for most certification programs and professional organizations. But we provide guidance, and our professionals who hold our certifications provide guidance, advice, and services to remove barriers and make the world a more accessible place. our people who hold our certifications are demonstrating a commitment to the accessibility profession. You don't need a piece of paper or a certification to say you know your stuff. However, when we are working to establish what is expected and what should be expected, certifications are certainly a way that you can illustrate that commitment and engagement. And we're often finding that we're having people that we perceive to be our seniors, our leaders, our mentors who've been in the profession for decades coming to say, it's not that I need this paper, but I need to ensure that for the next 2 to 3 generations of upcoming accessibility professionals or UX professionals or CX professionals, that we are building the best practices so that they can emulate and grow and advance all of this work that's important to us as a profession. So this also involves advancing the roles and responsibilities of the accessibility professionals by distinguishing those unique skills and knowledge. The same can be applied for UX professionals. And I think that there's some discussion, I call on the UX folks to speak to that, but that there's some discussion about establishing some type of certification and standards for the UX profession, but there has to be an accrediting organization. And so that'll be interesting to see how that rolls out. But I think that will be coming soon being relative. But also certifications establish benchmarks and standards for those professionals and practitioners. They increase awareness and recognition for the accessibility profession and how inclusion makes the world a better place. I promise you that almost everybody who's earned a credential of any sort, somebody will say, what do those 3 letters after your name mean? Or 4 letters, or however they may be displayed. If it's a digital badge, it's an opportunity to select that and provide some metadata and organic information about the profession, your skills, your knowledge, and really help people kind of learn in today's world what it is that you do that's different and how you bring those unique skills to the world, whether that's in your work or your volunteer or your advocacy. So that also is an opportunity to highlight and distinguish organizations' integration of accessibility into their ethos or UX or any other profession, because when an organization hires and promotes and advances and highlights that their employees, their team members hold these credentials for their respective professions. Privacy professionals have the International Association of Privacy Professionals, IAPP, credentials, security credentials. You expect people in engineering to hold credentials for their skills and things. So it's a way that companies and organizations can also highlight their built-in commitment to, in this case, DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion for accessibility. So there's certainly ways that it can benefit companies as well. So just the high level overview. And if you're interested, Glenda Sims, who works for DQ, she's a co-founder of Access U. Glenda is on Twitter, you'll know her as Goodwitch. She is a brilliant person and one of the most amazing and generous people that I know in the accessibility world. Wrote a blog in 2018 for a blog called 24a11y.com that is 24 days of accessibility information. And her premise was accessibility pro certified, to be or not to be. And so she focused this and she provided a graphic for her blog. And it's kind of an explanation of how you'll find many organizations have a core competencies program, their base, their foundation. This is what everyone in our profession should know, best practices that allows you to speak competently and with great education and the ability to advise and guide conversations to build in these elements for our sake, accessibility from the beginning, at design concept, for communications, for the IT team, for marketing. So we have a core competencies program that's foundational. And Glenda has this presented at a pyramid on this slide. And the pyramid has bright green at the base that says foundational core competencies. And there is a conversation bubble off to the left that says Certified Accessibility Pro in Core Competencies, or CPAC, CPACC. The middle section of this pyramid is the intermediate or technical specific. And so this is often where you will find deep, not so deep dives, but intermediate level programs in specialty areas, technical areas. So that's where you'll find specific areas, niche areas. Those are specialties. Experts go beyond that. And so expertise is really hard to quantify with exams and assessments. So it usually requires portfolio reviews and other things. But you'll see core competencies and then intermediate levels. There's a question in chat that says, what about the problem of people potentially setting standards or certifications on faulty principles? So that has to do with the organization that's accrediting and issuing the credentials. The way a program is built, if they follow proper standards, are going to be set out to the public to confirm that their principles and the standards or benchmarks are accepted by the public. If somebody is just issuing a credential because they want to issue a credential and they haven't gone through those processes, then that's a challenge with the validity of the organization that's issuing the credentials. How do you ensure these are the right standards to use during any particular generation? Credentials and certification programs are always going to be live living entities and beings. So they're going to be updated. And you'll find some certification programs, which I know that we'll have to on our intermediate program, when WCAG updates to 2. When we went from 2.0 to 2.1, and then 2.2 will be later this year, and Silver with 3.0 coming sometime in the near future, we will be updating content. When it becomes relative to requiring our certificates to take another exam, like with the Trusted Tester program, when things updated for Trusted Tester and that methodology, they were the candidates who wanted to maintain a current credential needed to retest. So, Elijah, I think that the proper building and public validation of the content outline is how you guarantee that those are valid principles. And that has to do with how the certification programs are designed. Does that help, Elijah? Hope so. But we got a few minutes left. We have other information. If you're interested, you're more than welcome to join, to email me, find me on LinkedIn, on Twitter. I do a good bit of advocacy about accessibility. But for IWAP, we started in 2016 with our core competency programs. We had 32 CPACs when we first started. We're now 1,885 CPACs in 49 countries around the world. And our WAS, our intermediate technical program, started in 2017 with 5. Now we have 637 in 38 countries around the world. And we've updated the exam twice. And we've done the same with CPAC. We'll be doing the 3rd update for CPAC this year. So those updates, I think, speak to Elijah's, hopefully, the concerns about updating and staying current. So I'm going to advance through some of the other slides that we don't have time to get to that are just talking about our programs. If you're interested in learning more about, if you're interested in learning more about our programs or certification, yeah, there's Elijah saying that helps, but what if the public is wrong? So, right, so psychology and design hopefully have corrected themselves. Public feedback is really an accurate way. If there's a concern that the content, the body of knowledge should always be public for any certification program. That can always be reviewed, and that feedback should always be open. Psychology, thankfully, has shifted and changed for the better. There's still growth to be done, and the same in design work. And so in professions, there's always growth and development. And so the certifications should follow that path as well. So thank you for making time to join us today. We're hoping to build accessible futures around the world in accessibility, in UX, in design, in customer experience. I have colleagues that work for the customer experience profession as well. So Debbie, thanks for letting me join you today, and your wonderful attendees. I thank you so much. Feel free to reach out to me if you have questions, and I'll be happy to chat. Thanks so much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sam, for joining us today, especially on short notice. Everyone's giving you lots of thanks in the chat room. Thanks again to Savi for the live typing. And I'm still in a technical support chat with Zoom, so we're going to close the room for now, and kind of throw people out. But thanks to everybody. And Sam, see you around LinkedIn.
Thanks, y'all. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.